Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 41. We will be covering Starman Volume 1, 15 and 16, the Will Payton series, and I got a lot to say about these two. And let's get started. First of all, I might sound a little weird. I have had dental work. I have a new upper denture, so I'm still learning it. Got to slow down when I talk. You got to relearn talk when you get these things. But pain's down. I feel like I could record solo, so I'm going to do a Starman episode. So let's get started. And we will do that with the pertinent data from Mike's Amazing World. And I wanted to say a little thing before we do this. Mike, who founded this website, this amazing website, passed away recently. It was very sad to see. There was a nice announcement on his page with a little quotation and a picture of death from Neil Gaiman, and saying that the site would go on and that he had made plans, arrangements for that. And the amazing work that he put in on this website that I only discovered recently, having heard Dave and Pete from Earth 2 podcast talk about it. And it's kind of it and Grand Comic Book Database, my kind of go-to places now. And this one's great, and it's really helping me with this episode today. So thank you, Mike, for this site, and our condolences and love to your family. All right, so the pertinent data for Starman 15. It was released on August 29th, 1989. Cover date October 1989. It's a 22-page story. It is titled Deadline Doom. The editor is Brian Michael Austin. The creators are writer Roger Stern, penciler Tom Lyle, inker Scott Hanna, letterer Robert M. Penaha, colorist Carl Gafford. And it's got a pretty good cover by Tom Lyle of the villain, Deadline, phasing through the wall with a knife trying to kill Will. Pretty good. It's good. Not the greatest cover, but it's not a bad cover. It's just a pretty standard 80s cover, or 80s cover. Main character, Starman Will Payton. I didn't cover these, but between 14 and 15, 13 and 14, Action Comics 644, and then right before this, Action Comics 645. Starman makes an appearance, but that's more that if you're reading the Superman, you need to read the Starman. If you're reading the Starman story, you don't need to read the Superman stuff. His buddy Phil is in this issue. Deadline, this is his first appearance. His next appearance will be in Starman 22. You've got some new characters, and his mom is remembered. And the synopsis is, Will Payton visits Las Vegas, where his friend Phil Easton has hit the jackpot. Upon arriving in town, Starman rescues a Learjet with engine trouble. He joins Phil for a night on the town. His night is interrupted when a costume killer chases a man through the streets. The killer is Deadline, a mercenary who has already killed the man's two brothers. Failing to pay a gambling debt, Starman protects the man, Joey Fisher, but Deadline possesses the ability to walk through walls, making him difficult to catch. Eventually, Deadline disappears. Finster is put into protective custody, but Deadline returns and finishes the job. This was like I've been saying, I'm really enjoying this run. I'm really enjoying this story. This series. It's just a good, solid comic book. It is well written by Roger Stern, who I'm a fan of. This one works really well. It's a one and done. You start with Finster and Deadline killing one of his brothers. Then, Starman being heroic and going to Vegas and running and meeting his buddy. And they, I'm really enjoying the supporting cast a great deal. It gives more, it beefs up Will's character because you get to see him interact with regular people, and there's a lot of regular going on. Not a regular guy won the jackpot and they're all having a town. But this is just a great, straight up action comic that moves the story along. I want to compliment a couple. I want to compliment Tom Lyle and the inker, Mr. Hanna. Is it Mr. Hanna? Yes. Scott Hanna. The art's getting better and better every issue. Better and better and better every issue. There's some great him flying over Vegas. It reminds me of Bob Layton. It really reminds me a lot of Bob Layton. And I mean that as a compliment. I mean Bob Layton when he was doing Iron Man pencils and inks, when he was doing Hercules. That kind of, it feels like that to me, and I love that style. He saves a plane, he saves a bus. Well, he saves a bus from the plane. And you get, you get the stuff. You get the soap opera stuff, which I like, him interacting with regular people. I like Deadline as a villain. I don't know him that well, but he seems like a good recurring villain for Will. And he's in Suicide Squad at some point, yeah. But he's a pretty good villain. This is just a straight... There's not a lot to talk about, except it's really well done. It's beautiful to look at, except at the end, when they're having lunch in a diner, Phil, his buddy's really hungover. Phil sees an article on the other side of the paper. Will's facing the front of the paper, and on the back, his buddy goes, "Hey, Will, there's a picture of some guy on the back page who looks sort of like you, only older. Do you know any relatives in Frisco named Deming?" "Deming?" says Will. "Oh, my God, Dad." And there's a picture of his father, and it says, "San Francisco, hero battles for his life." And next issue, Secret of Starman's Father. Now, I got a lot to say about this next issue, so let's go to Mike's. So, this is issue 16. It was on sale date, September 26, 1989. Cover date, November 1989. Brian Michael Austin, editor. Title is Father Calls Me William. Page 20. It's 22 pages. Starman. Creative team, exactly the same as the last issue. It has a really good cover. It is Will kneeling or leaning on the railing of his father's hospital bed with his head in his hands, and behind him, him in his costume crying, and it says A Father's Day. Supporting characters are Jane Payton, Marie Payton, Carol Simon. Other characters, Raymond Denning, his father, his first and only appearance, his doctor, and some nurses. The synopsis says this. After seeing an article in the newspaper, Starman flies to San Francisco to visit his father in the hospital. Will hasn't seen his father in 20 years and has no proof of their relationship. He's denied access to his dad. So Will assumes the identity of the doctor to get into the room and speak with his father, who is in a coma. Raymond Denning then wakes from his coma. Will is still unable to reach the rest of his family by phone, but Jane and her mother already are on their way. After the doctor checks on Raymond, Will is allowed to speak with him. He wonders why his father left. Raymond tells him that he found $50, then got on a bus. He wanted freedom from his family, but he never used the freedom wisely. Will is angry. He denies being like his father and even reveals his secret identity. Jane arrives moments before Raymond's body gives out. He issues an apology before dying. This was an incredibly powerful comic book for me. I cannot say, I don't really have the words to say how wonderful I think this comic is, how I miss issues of a superhero comic where this kind of interpersonal, emotional stuff happened. It doesn't happen a lot nowadays. I don't see it in most superhero comics. I really don't. I see it in some, but not in running ones. I don't think some of the modern. I think some writers have the vocabulary. Mark Waid, Kurt Busiek. No, there's a lot of it, but I don't think Roger. I mean, he nails it. Roger Stern nails this. This is about a son. his, two children and their father. He was a little kid when his father left. And all he wants to do, he knows he sees his father's in the hospital, and he goes to visit him. And it becomes this moment in Will's life that we get to experience with him that doesn't have anything, not one iota, to do with him as Starman. And that is amazing. This is a father and a son reconnecting at the last moment. This is a time for two people who should know each other and have spent years loving each other like a father and son should. It's a father on his deathbed admitting his mistake and just before he dies doing something incredibly hard. People think apologizing it's easy. In this book, it is written to infer that he means it, that it's not bullshit. But it is a father on his deathbed begging a child he didn't know for his own selfish reasons and asking for one of the greatest gifts any human being can give another one is forgiveness. Absolution. Well, not absolution. I don't think you give people absolution. I think you give people, you forgive them. Doesn't mean you forget the hurt. Don't mean it doesn't bother you, but it doesn't, if you can, in that simple act of forgiveness, you can set someone free of a lot of pain. It's a powerful thing. And I don't think we have enough of it in this world. I think it is lacking almost everywhere. In a society that has become incredibly polarized, right, left, religious, not religious, all the divisions that we force upon each other. And we now we do not forgive people for simple mistakes. I'm not talking big mistakes. I'm not talking if they don't ask for your forgiveness, fuck them. Okay? They should apologize and ask for the forgiveness. And if someone is contrite and truly in their heart apologizes for a horrible thing or something they did that wounded you, you should be human enough to offer up forgiveness. And I think that's the best part and the biggest message I got out of this comic. Because this comic is not about being a superhero. It's about being a son. A son who's had issues with his dad, who's abandoned. And Jane and Marie. Marie doesn't get to say goodbye. Jane does. But Marie, with all her anger, we know she's angry. She went back to her maiden name. He deserted her with 2 kids. But even she was heartbroken that he was gone. Because this was the father of her children. These are all real-time, everyday emotional things. It's like that. That's what makes me. I'm loving. I was digging this comic even before this issue. I absolutely love what Roger Stern, Scott Lyle, and the rest of them are doing with it. This is a fantastic issue. It's got enough comic book tropes. I'm going to use my superpowers to disguise. I got to fly to go see my dad. But this is about the Paytons, the 3 Paytons. And we get to see the flashback of this event, his father Raymond leaving them, that has created their life. Their mom had to work hard to pinch pennies and saved and bought the house they live in. They are a loving, tight trio. They were in it together. And all because this man deserted them. But Stern showing him apologizing and, and just them getting this closure in this issue. And I haven't read the next issue, so I don't know how this plays out later. Is, you know what? I think some people are going, why did I pay $1? Comic was a comic, so this would be a $4.99 comic. Why am I reading this to see this guy why isn't he fighting something? Why isn't there a supervillain? Why isn't there this, that? Because you don't need it in a good comic. In a long-running series, I think you really, really, really need these sidebars, these character pieces, so we know who Will is. I love Jane. I love Jane from the other Starman series. I love her more now. I love Marie. I really am starting to really get a connection to Will's mom. I'm really loving it. I mean, I'm very animated right now. I cannot express enough how much I think this is an absolutely perfect comic book. Absolutely perfect. Does what it's supposed to do in one issue. It's got emotion. It's got depth. It's got real people. Loved it. And I'm going to end it there because I'll just keep going on and on about the same thing. I cannot recommend the series enough. Please, please read it. There's a certain part in this, and I'm recording this after I kind of finished original recording. I'm just going to try to drop it in so you won't know where I was thinking. I forgot to put something in. I want to talk about Will as that he is angry with his father, and the forgiveness is understood. And I didn't really touch on that. I thought about it as I was editing, and I wanted to add this. That Will's angry. You know, when he's being told the story, it just makes it worse. You just left. You got on a bus. He's having all these, and his father makes some comment, and it triggers him. I'm nothing like you. I'm nothing like you. And as I was prepping to edit and pulling up panels and the covers to post, I thought about me and my dad, who I love, who I've said more in time on Pat Gallifrey's in here that I was very lucky that I knew my hero was my pops. But when I was younger, my dad left my mom. And I was a kid, and I didn't understand it, and I was mad. And I didn't want to be anything like him. He couldn't keep his word. He couldn't do this. He couldn't do that. But I was fortunate enough to have time with my father. And stop being a 13-year-old boy, angry at the faults of my dad. His faults and his relationship. I had to grow up and know that his faults and his relationship with my mother was in my mother's business and none of mine. You know, they had a complicated relationship, but they were married for over a quarter century and had 6 children together. And he never said an unkind word about her. The last thing he said whenever I spoke to him on the phone was, "How's your mom? Does she need anything?" for the next 40 years. But I see in this reactions of Will that anger, and I really didn't mention it because I was more taken with I love the ending. I like the ending where they're kind of at peace and they're glad that they've been there for Raymond's last moment. But there's that thing about children and their parents and anger. I mean, Will is incredibly justified for any anger he has for Raymond. Completely justified. But this story is so well done, and that anger is done. That whole we see the flashback. We see Will reacting, and his anguish. It's anger and anguish all at the same time. And it just adds so much to this. And so that's why I had to come back and edit this, record this last little bit, and then I'm just gonna stick it in toward the end. So in a moment, you're going to hear me say thank you. All right, I don't know what's coming up this week. It's either going to be weekend. It's going to be maybe the next Danger Street, or I might do a Legion one. But work's busy. I've been a lot of pain. My mouth is still healing. I've only got my upper plate, and I'm learning how to adapt to it. Got another sizing on it tomorrow. A lot of stuff going on. Appreciate you bearing with my lisp, which I'm getting from the plate, and for listening and being so supportive. Please reach out to me when I post. Let me know what you think. Shoot me a letter. Shoot me an email or a direct message. Post something on any of the socials, Threads. I'm on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky. and Twitter and other things. But please let me know what you're thinking. Please check out Earth 2 Podcast. I've been lucky enough that they're doing this last week. They did the first part of the Crisis on Earth X, and I'm playing Jay Garrett. Thank you guys, Dave and Pete. And check out Gallows Free's Most Wanted. Me and Melvin Pena have been covering the first of the 2 specials, and this Saturday we will do the 3rd one. All right, but till I'm back, be safe, be smart, be kind to people. If someone has wronged you and they apologize, use some human compassion and give them some forgiveness. Okay? It's good for you. And read some comics.